Junction, your YouTube space to nerd out about all things the Dark Crystal. Today we're going to be looking at the new Dark Crystal, not these old school comic books, but rather the new ones. The new Dark Crystal comic books that just came out and actually just finished today. Today is Pi Day, 3.14 March 14th, 2018. This series just finished today, and I want to give a non-spoiler review. I'll probably take some more videos later down the line, and we will look at some of the spoilers, look at some of the lore of this. It's one of the reasons I started the channel is I wanted to talk about the lore of the Dark Crystal. I haven't even got to do that yet. Had so many video ideas, and please insert in comments stuff you want to see all related to the Dark Crystal. So real quick, let's talk about the power of the Dark Crystal. And thank you to my son Judah, who is manning the camera for me today. The power of the Dark Crystal is the true sequel to Jim Henson's 1982 cult classic, The Dark Crystal. Originally, this was going to be a film which was announced May of 2005. So it's been a very long time until we've gotten the actual true sequel. Since 2005 is when they first announced it. The script was by David Odell, who also originally wrote the Dark Crystal script, him along with his wife, Annette Duffy this time. Odell says that he had discussed these concepts during the production with Jim Henson and Brian Froud, off and on and whatnot, which is kind of interesting because you see some interviews where Jim Henson's saying there is no need for a sequel, maybe something beforehand, something else in the world, but there's really no need for a sequel. The film is complete. It doesn't really need anything after it. However, they came back to these ideas, especially after it kind of became more of a cult classic success when it came out on VHS and later releases and whatnot. And they still had notes from Henson and Froud, so the Jim Henson Company wanted to continue and try to make this a movie. Brian Froud, the designer of the original film, worked with the Henson Company on concept art for the new film as well. The film was on and off until 2012. It switched directors, it switched this and that, multiple screenplays were written, they revised the scripts and whatnot. Ultimately, it finally came to an end in 2012. Although still in 2014, Brian Henson, when he was promoting the Jim Henson Creature Shop show, said that they had stuff still to do and wanted to make this a movie. They're going to kind of take those steps. So it's been almost 10 years in the making. Fans have been waiting for these to come out. And finally, Boom Studio, a subsidiary of Archaia, they've been making some Dark Crystal comics. They made the creation myths. Ultimately, film production was scrapped, and the unproduced screenplays were turned into the 12-part comic series, which you see here. Simon Spurrier is the writer of issues 1 through 4, and he also tag teams the writing with Philip Kennedy Johnson, who gets credited on them starting from issues number 5 through issues number 12. So the writing does change, and also the art is by Kelly Matthews and Nicole Matthews. And there are very many different covers from very many different artists that you can see throughout here. This is one of the alternative covers. I believe the first issue had 7 different covers you could get. They all at least have 2 different covers. The general cover that you see, and then the subscription cover if you do the subscription and whatnot. All the covers are beautiful, and my favorite kinds of covers are that one from that first issue I showed you. It's actually the subscriber style. Kind of has a Celtic knot style. I just love that. This seems very Dark Crystal, feels very Dark Crystal. Very beautiful stuff. Also another one of my favorites is here, one of the new races you see. But anyways, this is the non-spoiler review. There's so much more I want to say about it, but let me first talk about when these came out. So these first came out, the first issue came out in February of 2017. It's a 12-part issue, and now it's March. So what happened? Well, the second issue had some delays. It had some misprints, some errors in the printing and whatnot. So everything got pushed back a month. It eventually came out in April instead of March of 2017. So that's why finally here in March 2018 we have the final issue, which came out today again. So let me give you my quick review of this. I'm kind of, again, relate this in multiple different ways as I can without going into any spoilers. This does follow the general synopsis of the proposed film that never came out, and so in that regard, you pretty much do finally get the story you've been waiting a very long time to get. In general, there are some changes. We can probably talk about those more later, but you do generally get the sequel as it was planned. So that's good. Although you don't get it in a film. Everyone was looking forward to a second film, so that was kind of a bummer. But at least you get it in a visual medium. The Dark Crystal is a very visual movie, as you know, so at least you get that from the comic book. Let me just crack open issues number 1 and 2 to kind of show you some of the artwork, and I'll be panning those out here as well. I personally came into this a little bit skeptical. I had stayed away from kind of knowing what the power of the Dark Crystal was going to be known about all these years. And I came to this just as I wanted to read the story. I didn't even read the synopsis or anything like that. And when I came to issue number 1, you know, I see that beautiful cover, like, oh, that looks so sick. And here you can see all the various different covers that they did for episode number 1. And it starts off with that beautiful Freudian, crazy cool Dark Crystal, I don't know what you call that, graphic and whatnot. But it starts off, another world, another time, beyond the age of wonder. That just sent chills up my spine. It's like, oh, that is so cool. And as soon as I turned the first page, I just go, that is just such beautiful artwork. Now, I have seen kind of mixed reviews on the art. Some people really like the art. Some people really don't like the art. I haven't really seen any in between. It is a different art style. Someone compared it to the Scott Pilgrim style art, which is kind of popular in comics nowadays, where the figures look certain ways. Let me find a kind of picture of that. Here you can see one of the new races that we find there. So it is a different style of art. I really like it. I think the coloring is what just knocks this out of the park for me. But I loved how every page I turned was just vibrant, beautiful colors. And, you know, honestly, there wasn't too much dialogue, which I don't think there need to be. The visuals told a lot of the story. I mean, look at these pages. These are super cool. So I kind of came into this a little skeptical, read issue number 1, and I was like, okay, I'm a little more hopeful now. And then issue number 2 came out, and I picked that one up. Again, this is an alt cover. You can see the various different covers on the inside. But again, just see those big, beautiful colors. I personally do love this art style. I'm more than happy to see different types of art style. In the Dark Crystal, you have various different that you've seen throughout the books and past comics, and even that you find inside the novels, the junior novels, that is. But again, it was just beautiful. I love the various different colors, the feels you get. It all just looks gorgeous. I was totally sold on this. After I had read the first 2, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great series. Got to issue number 3, and issue number 3 totally changed my perspective on this. I got to the first page, I opened up that page, and I was like, wait, what? Wait, are you kidding? And at first it was a good shock, like, oh, like it was very shocking. But then quickly within a couple seconds I was like, wait, but how does that even make sense? How does that work? I need some explanation for it. And so honestly, when I was going through the rest of the comics, again, this is one of my favorite colors, that is just so sick. When I was going through the rest of these comics, I was, it kept me intrigued, it kept me interested. The art style inside stayed the same, stayed great. There's still some very awesome looking covers all throughout. I really wish I could have got them all. But some of this stuff that started in issue number 3 never got answered. And I was hoping, I was like, okay, it's still the last month. I'm holding out hope. It didn't get answered. Overall, I can't give these a rave review. The art style, I think, is really cool. The covers are amazing. The story is okay. Once it hit issue number 3, a lot of it honestly became a lot of rehash. If you've seen The Dark Crystal, which I assume you have, otherwise I don't know why you're reading these, it really became a, you know, from the Star Wars original trilogy to The Force Awakens, you know, very rehashy, which wasn't very exciting for me because, you know, fans have been waiting so long for this sequel. The story was just, it's okay at best, but it has so many plot holes. It's, you know, so many questions, so many questions that don't get answered. And as far as we know, there's nothing coming out after this. And honestly, I hope they don't do anything after this because I think you can get the most, or rather, if they do stuff after this, like because of how the crystal's connected to other planets with the crystals, which you learn about in creation myths and other books, why not see what other planets bring in? Why not see the Urskeks we know came from another planet? Why not bring in some other inhabitants from other planets to see, you know, to be the protagonist and whatnot, or sorry, rather, to be the antagonist and whatnot. But we don't get that. If there are ever any sequel type stuff, I do hope they explore out more, kind of like the way it was going in issues 1 and 2 for me. It looked like they were really expanding the world, which I love, which I wanted to see. But ultimately, I don't think that happened. I was rather disappointed, especially also because it kind of contradicted some of the stuff, how the Gelfling races were. Perhaps the Gelfling race has changed, after those kind of 7 clans we see, which we'll get more to in lore videos. But as far as we know, as far as I can say, this is just an okay series. If you're a hardcore Dark Crystal fan, of course you're going to get it because you've got to have everything. Just as a comic reader in general, it's not that good, unfortunately. The artwork, I think, is great. The coloring is beautiful. Covers are awesome. But that's the best I could say for that. Also, another thing you should know, you don't need to read these to know or enjoy the upcoming Netflix series Age of Resistance. Age of Resistance is prequel stuff, so I don't think it's going to have any connection to these characters, especially because we know from the Dark Crystal the only 2 Gelflings left at the time are Jen and Kira. Jen and Kira are in this, of course. There's Jen there, old man Jen. But yeah, you don't need to, if you're looking forward to the Netflix series and you're like, okay, what do I need to read to do that? I'll make another video on stuff to kind of get prepared for. I think there are a lot of books and comics you can read to help you understand that series even better. Not necessary reading, but helpful reading. But this, however, is not necessary, not going to be helpful, and I think ultimately it's going to actually confuse you more. It at least did me, and I'm really bummed about that because I was really holding out hope for it. But that's the best I can say. I think it was just okay. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to talk the lore, if you want to talk spoilers, let's do that in another thread. That way we can keep this spoiler free. Also, ask me any questions you want to see coming up. And also give me your opinion on this. If you liked it, if I'm wrong in an area, if I misunderstood something, if I skipped over a page somehow, and that totally answered all the questions that issue 3 brought up that never got answered, which there's some more questions that came out throughout it all. Let me know in the comments section.
Questions, too many questions.
It is kind of easy and hard to stay still.